Um, this webinar is 1 hour long, and Ross is going to be doing most of the talking. If you have any questions to Ross during the webinar, you can use the question or comment pane at the bottom of the right-hand side that's in this webinar tool. If it's questions I can answer without sending them out to Ross, I will just write back to you. If it's more general questions about how do you do something or how do I use one tool or another, then there might be time at the end for Ross to answer them, so we'll keep them until then. If it's questions about something particular that Ross has just said, then we'll pass them on to Ross right away so he can answer them. Yes, I think that's about all. Ross, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Ross McCulloch. I'm Director of Third Sector Lab, so I do training like this pretty much most days of the week with charities and public sector organisations. So I've done some training with Improvement Service before with elected members, so face-to-face events in a range of places across the country. We've done some work with elected representatives for Redshire Council and Angus Council and a few other places as well. So we're going to spend about the next hour focused on content primarily. So we've got an hour, so this is not a session on this is how you got a tweet up or this is how you got a post up on a Facebook post. That technical stuff is relatively easy. We're going to talk about the difficult bit of how do you use content as a tool to get your job done. The other thing just to say is these slides will be shared, so we'll share the link to these in the chat, so you can go and browse them online or you can download them as a PDF, whatever format works best for you. Also to say my contact details are on the first slide and on the last slide. So if there's any questions at all after the webinar, ask a question throughout or at the end. But if you go back to your desk and think, actually, I should ask that, or you mentioned this tool and I didn't take a note of it, any of that kind of stuff, then do just ping the message. That's absolutely fine. So all my contact details are on there. Okay, right. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, there we go. So it's my screen now that we've got. So the slides link is there, but it also gets shared in the chat box. So that top bit that you can see in the slides, if you're looking at my screen just now, so that bit.ly link, so bit.ly/iscontent2018. So if you type that straight into your browser bar, it will take you to the slides, but we'll make sure that's shared in the chat as well. A few other resources I thought were worth chatting through. So there's the Standards Commission Councillors Code of Conduct using social media, which is really good in terms of ensuring that you protect yourself and that you're safeguarded and that everything that you do is as it should be. There's also a really useful guide that the Improvement Service have pulled together, which talks about more of the nitty-gritty stuff. So how do you choose channels, where are your audiences going to be, and some of the technical stuff, that kind of top tips for using Twitter, or for using your Facebook page, or for getting started with blogging or video content. So that's a really, really good guide to go and have a look at. There's a link in there. The other thing that I use is a site called Pinboard, which is an online bookmarking service. So that has around 2,500–3,000 resources in it that get updated every single week. There is a local government tag or local gov tag, so if you click on that, you'll get loads of examples and case studies and resources of people using it at local government level and council level, so that's quite useful as well. The other thing we've done is if you're completely new to social media, so if you're just dabbling or you've never used it before, there's a really good beginner's guide which we wrote, which sits on the Scottish Charity Regulator website, which you can download for free, and that covers content planning, strategy, and a whole range of other things. And the final thing is a site called Charity Catalogue, which brings together lots of free or low-cost tools which you can use to create content. We're going to talk about some of those tools right at the end of this. So if you're thinking video content is going to work well for you and you want to create more videos, we'll talk about some free tools that you can use for doing that. If you think audio might work for you, or creating graphic-based content to show the impact that you're having at a local level, some really simple things that you can use to do that stuff without having to pay for an expensive designer or hire someone to come and shoot video for you. Okay, and just remembering there's 15 people in the room just now, so if you've got any questions at all, use that chat box and we'll address questions as they come through. If it's something that's a bit more detailed or complicated, still put it in the chat box and we can kind of park that until the end. Plenty of time for that. Okay, so I thought I'd start off with some quotes from fellow councillors. So to 3 quotes from councillors talking about their advice in terms of how you should be using social media and why you should be using it. So Anna Richardson, who represents Langside, so using it as a tool to celebrate good things happening in your area, make it a place that locals go seek out updates and information. So thinking about almost your role as a councillor to become a hub for all that interesting and positive stuff that's going on across your community. How do you amplify that kind of content? Really good piece of advice there from Gary Robinson. So don't tweet about anything you're not prepared to do a live radio interview about in the next 10 minutes, which sounds kind of scary, but this is one of the big benefits of social media, particularly Twitter, that ability to bridge that gap between digital media and traditional media. So most journalists in Scotland have a Twitter account. Most of them are using it as a way to source stories. So if you have something to say, something meaningful to say on a local issue that's affecting local communities that you represent, there's a good chance that local journalists are going to pick up on that content as it's happening on Twitter. So just thinking about how you can take advantage of that. Okay, this is probably the most solid piece of advice. So from Councillor Ken Hawkins, avoid politics, it's boring and people are fed up with it, show local leadership and engage. So this is, I guess, the crux of what we're looking at today is not how do you use this as a tool for party politics or for broadcasting party messages. I'm sure your party will have lots of good advice on that, lots of good thoughts on that, and will give you lots of good content you can share. So that stuff's probably dealt with quite well within your party at the moment. But actually, how do you do that day-to-day stuff as a council? That's what we come on to next in terms of setting those goals as to why you're using social media in the first place. So let's get back to basics. So what I want you all to do is I want you to think about how can content help you get your job done as a councillor. I want you to use that chat box to come up with a goal. So I want you to think about, is this about for you creating storytelling content to show the difference that you've made locally or maybe to highlight local issues? Do you want to create consultation content so that you can better understand the needs of the communities that you represent? Do you want to use blogging as a thought leadership tool to influence decision makers and to change policy at a local level? Do you want to dispel myths and misconceptions about the area that you represent? Maybe there's a local campaign that you're involved with a local charity that you're backing, and you want to use social media to galvanise local support around that. You might want to think about engaging more with local primary and high schools, and thinking about how you connect with parents better and get an understanding of the issues that they're facing. So that slide I'm going to leave up, but just say I want you to come up with one goal specific to your work, and I want you to think about who your audience is for that goal. Now, don't worry too much about making this really detailed, just one simple thing. I'm going to leave that slide up, and you can pop that in the chat box. And we'll just take literally a couple of minutes to do that, and we'll see some of the things that you come up with. But I just want you to frame the context of why you're using social media. So not just because a load of other councillors are using it and you think Twitter or Facebook might work well, but actually what do you want to achieve as a result of this? So just see what Okay, any of those coming in yet?
No, we don't have any at the moment.
Okay.
I will just give you organizer rights to this, Ross, so that you can actually see everything that comes in yourself,
Cool, perfect.
and you can give that back to me at a later time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have one in questions now, Ross. If you open.
All right, okay. Okay, so and to publicise what I'm doing in the community and develop engagement with the public, and that was from Jan. That's a really good one. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll talk about engagement throughout. We'll talk about it not just as a throwaway term, but Jan's point there about how do you understand what people in your local communities want and need? How do you understand what they think and the role that social media can play within that? Okay, that's a great one. Excellent. Okay. Any others? Okay, so if you're still working that out, then just keep that in mind.
Russ, there's a couple more in the questions.
In the questions, okay, no worries. Okay. Okay, the questions box is very small on my computer, so I'm
you can unclick it by clicking the pane that has an arrow out, so it will come up big on your screen.
There we go, excellent, right. Okay, so to keep constituents informed of local issues, absolutely. So this is one of the big things that's come up with the work that I've done with elected members previously, is getting local people to understand some of those mechanisms. So when people think there's been a local issue, but actually the wheels are moving really slow in this, there might be good reasons, there might be due processes in place. So keeping people informed of that can be a really, really powerful thing, and social media can be really useful in that. To promote an interest in community events, so that's from Del Henriksen, that's a really good one. And again, going back to that notion of you acting as a community hub, when there's positive stuff going on in your community, and especially in communities where there's maybe an unfair negative perception of that community, how do you amplify that really good positive stuff that's going on? Okay, great, cool. So keep those coming in now, keep an eye on some of those, but I just want you to keep that as your context for today. Is thinking about, when I'm thinking about content, I'm thinking about the channels that I'm using, you're always thinking about that goal that you've got in mind. Okay, so we're going to talk about this very boring statistic now, but this, once you get your head around this, everything else should fall into place. So the average Facebook user has about 1,500 potential newsfeed stories per day, only about 20% of them make the cut. So Facebook's algorithm is working every single millisecond to determine what you see on your own personal timeline. Now, what that means for you is when you post content from your page as a counsellor, your content from your page is competing with a whole raft of other stuff in that day. So that could be a video of a cat falling off the television that everyone in your network thinks is funny and is sharing. It could be that your cousin's just had her first baby and she's shared some photographs of that, and everyone's engaged in that post and liking on it and wishing her well. Now, just keeping in mind that your content has to compete with all of that stuff. Now, that 20% feels very scary. It feels as if, how do I get content in front of people when actually only 20% of it is going to make the cut and actually be delivered to their timelines? Now, the reality is that algorithm changed about a month ago, and it's now much, much more difficult. That number is quite significantly lower. What I would say, though, is when you look at some of the research from the Department of Culture and Sport, the Office of National Statistics, and there's a big bit of research last year looking at what are people's drivers for using social media. The big answer they got back time and time again is people want to know what's happening in their local communities. So that could be a local event that's going on, it could be a piece of local gossip, why is that road closed? It could be how do they volunteer for local charities in their area. But that localised stuff is key to Facebook, always keeping that stuff in mind. Now, in terms of those other channels, Instagram is owned by Facebook. The algorithm is very, very similar. And Twitter has a very similar algorithm as well. So we're seeing a move away from chronological news feeds into news feeds driven by algorithms that are trying to hazard a guess as to what that person's interested in and delivering them that content. Now, that feels quite scary, but actually what that means is when you create content that is good and is shareable and for a localized audience, what that actually means is that you can create content that when someone hits that share button, you're not limited by the number of likes on a page. So well, I'm going to look at an example of this in a second. So you might have 50 likes on your page, but as people hit that share button, you hit on average a new network of 250 people. And you can see how that builds that shareability in. Okay. If I just ask you, Christopher, could you be able to turn your mic off just now, just because the keyboard's coming through quite loud? Is that okay?
Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah, cool. No, that's all right. Let's go.
Russ, just that I have you, there are some people who have technical issues and might just be dialing in. So if you could describe the slides as well, that's why I'm typing. Sorry about that.
That's okay, cool. So the main thing to keep in mind is that people on social media channels engage with content that's either interesting or useful to them. So if you can tick one of those two boxes, you're going to be absolutely fine. So always keeping that stuff in mind before you put that post on Facebook, or you write that blog post, or you think about that video that you're going to create about a piece of local news. Is that interesting or useful to that audience? Okay, so this is an example of using Facebook as a tool to understand your users, to ask questions, to spark debate, and this can be really useful at a local level. So I'm going to talk you through this. So this is an example from Relationships Scotland, who are a charity that I used to work with. So the law changed in England and Wales a couple of years ago, whereby if you're separated parents going to court over a child contact dispute, you now by law have to go to what's known as a mediation information assessment meeting. The law changed in Northern Ireland the year after, so Scotland is currently the only country in the UK where there's not a legal compulsion to find out the mediation before you go through a court process to arrange contact arrangements with your children. Now, what happened was this was a huge piece of news, so lots of people were talking about this online. It was a front page story in The Guardian, there was a phone-in on Radio 2. Now, what pretty much every journalist failed to mention was the fact that this did not apply in England and Wales. This piece of legislation did not apply in Scotland, sorry. This piece of legislation only applied in England and Wales. So lots of parents were confused. So we turned to Facebook and we used this as a tool to try and dispel myths about the fact that this wasn't happening in Scotland, but also to understand, what do parents think about this? Do you think this is a good idea in the first place? So we used Facebook as a focus group, essentially. So we used a tool called canva.com, and so we can post a link to that in the chat box. So Canva is a graphic design tool for people who know nothing about graphic design. It has pre-sized templates for print and for online, and you can do things like create this really simple talking heads graphic you can see there. I type in the text, 10 seconds later I've got a graphic that I can use on my Facebook page, on my Twitter account, on my Instagram account. So we asked this question. Now, this is a really good example of that algorithm that I mentioned, which feels really scary, how that algorithm can work in your favour. So that page only had about 500 likes on it at that point in time, so it's a fairly small Facebook page. That post was seen by about 22,000 people over 2 days. So anyone who's a parent would have an opinion in that. And we saw people really quickly start to talk about this in their own networks and to share it amongst their own networks. Now, the big numbers aside, and the fact that as an organisation we'd aligned ourselves with a big piece of news that everyone was talking about, and everyone was reading the papers that day, and the big thing for us was actually the really detailed responses we got back from people. So people like this guy, Barry Evans, no, it's not always been necessary. I've been a single parent, we didn't agree in terms immediately, but we're still able to agree terms about outside help. He went into a huge amount of detail about his own personal circumstances. Now, the conversation tailed off after maybe about a week or week and a half. We had about 45 or 50 really detailed responses from ordinary parents all across Scotland, giving their thoughts on this. So again, just thinking about how might you translate this into a local issue to really understand what local people think. Now, if anyone's got any questions about this, or if anyone's got any thoughts or any some of the challenges on that, and then pop them in the chat box and we can address those as we go through. But for me, this is really where social media comes into its own, is that ability to understand those local audiences and what they need and what they want. Okay, so next one, focus on what is important to local people. So this is a really nice example from Councillor Bob Miles, who's an independent. He's the leader of the council up in Angus, some of you probably know Bob. So a lot of the content that Bob creates on Facebook is nothing massively earth-shattering. He is not going and filming videos from scratch, but he has a really good understanding of what is important to local people and actually reacting to that stuff really quickly. So here's an example of the fact that one of the bridges, which is one of the main routes in rural Angus, was closed, and he'd been informed that the bridge had now been opened, and he used his Facebook page and that local reach that he's got through that page to inform people that the bridge was now open, and also to thank people that have been working on the bridge as well. Now, if you look at some of the numbers in that post, there was a huge amount of engagement underneath, and really positive engagement around this piece of content, but also that really critical number of those 57 shares. Now, if you remember that the average person on Facebook has 250 friends in their network, every time someone hits that share button, you hit that new network. So you can see very quickly with this type of content that's important to local people, how you can amplify your reach on Facebook. And again, if there's any questions about any of this content, ping them through in the chat box on the questions tool, and we'll try and address them as we go, or at the end we'll pick some of those up. Okay, so Instagram. I think Instagram is massively underused by elected members. Now, the reason that you need to get, a couple of reasons you need to get ahead around Instagram. Instagram now has more active users in the UK than Twitter does, in terms of a younger demographic in your community, so those people under the age of 25, this is the channel that they are using. And also thinking about the potential for really visual content. So if you work in a community and you can tell that visual story, and that might just be that when you're out and about doing your work and you're speaking to local people, you're taking photographs of what's going on in your local community, and you post that type of content once a week and use the right hashtags so that people can geographically find that, that can be a really, really powerful thing. This is probably my favourite example, though, of an Instagram campaign that had pretty much zero budget, but had a bit more thought put into it. And this is really about user-generated content, and just thinking about the lessons learned from this and how you could give those local people the ability to amplify that content. Okay, so this is a campaign from See Me, who are a Scottish mental health charity. Now, they did a lot of research to look at what are the social media channels that young people are using in Scotland, and how do we get involved. And Instagram was the answer that came back time and time again. So they opened an Instagram account, they came up with lots of shiny content, and they would have nice animated videos, they would have statistics about mental health, inspirational quotes. Now, this worked relatively well, but the level of engagement on it was very, very small. This was really the thing they wanted to do. They wanted to have conversations with young people about their lived experiences of mental health so they could better understand how services could meet their needs. Now, because there was so little engagement, we went back to the drawing board and we came up with this really simple concept of this hashtag, #MyUnfilteredLife. And we thought, actually, rather than us providing top-down content, we will create a campaign where the ownership of that content is on the users themselves. So young people could use this hashtag, #MyUnfilteredLife, and talk about their own lived experiences of mental health. So this one here, which you can see on the screenshot I've got, is from my friend Emma, who's given me permission to put this one up, talking about her own lived experiences of depression, just how difficult it can be getting out of the house on a Monday morning, and really candid photograph of herself with no filters on it. Now, over the course of launching this campaign, about 2 weeks in, there was something like 2,500 pieces of content like this from ordinary young people living in Scotland. Now, to the outside world, this looks as if it was a really nice, simple, organic campaign that just grew really quickly because it was a good idea. The reality was, Nick, who's the comms person at See Me, took a bit of time behind the scenes to figure out who are the influencers on Instagram that young people follow and trust. How do we get them to create the first piece of content for #MyUnfilteredLife? And from there, we will reach the exact audiences we want to reach. So people like the guy, Rich, who runs Abandonship Clothing in Glasgow, he's got about 100,000 followers on Instagram. So when he created that first #MyUnfilteredLife post, he had a massive audience of young people within Scotland. And I just want you to think about what that might look like for your local communities. How do you understand the spaces where local people go already, or the accounts that they follow, and get them to carry some of those messages, to get them to talk about some of the campaigns that you're working on? So what are those closed Facebook groups that people in your local community take part in? Who is that Twitter account that those people follow? Is there a local news blog that lots of people subscribe to? So always think about how do you go to where your audiences are. Okay, dispel myths and misconceptions. This can be a really powerful tool for elected members, where gossip can spread like wildfire in the local community, and there will be all sorts of misinformation about planning decisions, about other things that are going on, that perhaps you voted on, or the decisions you've been making, or where maybe processes are slower than they could be. And actually, how do you get involved in those conversations head on, rather than just thinking that these conversations are going on, but I don't want to take part in them. This is a really nice example of that, probably a more extreme example of that, is from Macmillan. So Macmillan Cancer Support, have employed a nurse within Glasgow whose sole job is to go into online groups and to combat fake news and misinformation about cancer and health support. So again, just think about how you take that concept of dispelling myths and misconceptions and tackling them head on. So sometimes get involved in quite difficult conversations, but where you know there's misinformation, what's your role as a counsellor to get involved in these types of conversations? And again, if there's any questions about this type of stuff, but where is it appropriate, where is it inappropriate, ping it into the questions box and we can address some of this stuff right around. Okay, next one. This is a campaign from Women 50/50, who, for those of you who don't know, have been campaigning to get a 50/50 gender balance in the Scottish Parliament and on boards. So there's a lot of stuff in the news about this at the moment, about trying to get a gender balance in terms of MSPs in the Parliament and how that works through the voting system. So it's quite topical, quite interesting. Now this is an example of them using Twitter as a tool to piggyback on news that people are reading already. So in that screenshot you can see there, on the left-hand side is a photograph of an article that was in the Daily Mail called Childless Politicians, which features 6 female politicians, quite high-profile politicians. And now, in that article, there was not a single man mentioned. So in the context of childless politicians and why it's important that women have children before they make decisions about children and families, which is nonsense, there was not a single man mentioned in that article. So Talat Yaqub, who runs on the 50/50 campaign, thought actually a really good visual way of highlighting the ridiculousness of this is I'm going to create a childless politicians montage myself featuring 6 high-profile male politicians just to highlight how ridiculous this is. She tweeted this out, very, very simple piece of graphical content that she created literally on Microsoft Paint. And if you look at some of the numbers down there below, that was retweeted 4,500 times. It was liked 2,500 times. The reach of that single tweet was into the hundreds of thousands. Now this worked because she really reacted really quickly to a piece of breaking news that everyone was reading about there and then, but also worked because of that visual content. So again, just thinking about how can you be fast-paced, how can you maybe push some of those boundaries in the way that you react to breaking news. Okay, engage in thought leadership. So not just thinking about social media as a tool to just broadcast messages or to do really short form pieces of content on Twitter or on your Facebook page, but sometimes this will involve digging a bit deeper. It will involve going into a bit more detail for those issues that you're working at. So I've got 2 examples in the slide there, and you can go and explore these in your own time. Now, probably my favourite organisation that does thought leadership content really well is the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, where they take often quite complex, often academic issues, and they create really simple blog content, which then allows them to run Facebook campaigns, Instagram campaigns on LinkedIn, Twitter, because that content that they created in the first place is easily digestible and comes in simple chunks. And so that one on the left, if you care about poverty, here are 10 reasons why you also need to think about ethnicity. So that does not just work as a blog post, that then becomes 10 Facebook posts that they can span over 10 days because they can chunk up each of those 10 reasons. So again, they're thinking about how do those channels work alongside each other. Okay, there's a few good examples out there in terms of councillors using blogging as a tool. The Green Party councillor, Andrew Cooper, who represents Kirklees area, I think he does this stuff really well, where he focuses on individual local issues. He'll take stuff that is in the public domain, so perhaps planning issues, and he'll use his blog as a way of broadening the audience for that. So rather than you having to turn up at a specific meeting or to turn up to view some planning decisions in a community centre, for example, he will take that and he will use digital tools to amplify that and get more people involved in it. So what I want you to really think about is digital as an accessibility tool. So thinking about all those audiences, maybe people who have a disability, maybe older people, maybe people who have young children who cannot get along to traditional meetings or traditional formats like surgeries, and actually how do you use digital tools as a way of getting those people involved in the democratic process. So go and check out those 2 examples I've put up here. Okay, support, celebrate and amplify local causes. You will all be involved in this type of stuff on a day-to-day basis. How do you use your own presence, whether it's on Twitter or your blog or your Facebook page, to amplify some of that amazing stuff that's going on at local level, and particularly for local social enterprises, community groups, or local charities where they're doing really good positive work in the community. How can you help them get the most out of that? So this is from Montrose Playhouse project, which is a really interesting project happening up in Montrose, where they're taking an old swimming pool, which has been gifted by the local authority to them. There's a £1 kind of nominal fee that they paid for it. And they are basically redeveloping it as a community hub and also as a cinema for Montrose. There hasn't been a cinema in Montrose, I think, for something like 40 or 50 years. And you can see some of the screenshots there, the kind of quite grand plans for that. They're doing a lot of fundraising activity, but really involving the local community in that planning process. Now, if you look again at that screenshot, you'll see some of the numbers in there. So I had over 600 likes on that post. And if you look at the shares and how that was amplified locally, 1,300 local people shared that. So again, just remembering, 1,300 people taking that and sharing that with their audience of on average 250 friends. Now, again, just thinking about visually, how can you as a council get behind some of this good stuff? How can you engage with them on your own Facebook page? How can you use your own channels to amplify the good work that they're doing? And it'd be good as well, actually, if you can use the chat box. If any of you have done some of this stuff where you've got behind local campaigns like this, how that's worked, some of the examples of that, and just maybe some of your own thoughts on where social media has helped that. Or even if you have concerns about where social media fits in that, hang it into the chat box or the questions box and pick something and stuff like that. Okay, this is a video which we are not going to watch just now because obviously we don't want 5 minutes of kind of dead air time. This is my favourite example of video as a storytelling tool. So this is from the charity Breast Cancer Now, who are one of the biggest charities in the UK. They do lots of big TV and radio campaigns. They work with big London media agencies, quite hefty budgets to create content. Now, this video is from a woman called Leslie, who lives in Scotland, who wrote a letter about her secondary breast cancer diagnosis. Leslie's video, which was filmed in her house and had a budget of £0, was Breast Cancer Now's most watched video on Facebook and on YouTube last year. So it had more views than all those TV campaigns. It had more views than the big shiny online campaigns that the London media agencies came up with them, because the concept is really simple. It is one woman talking about her lived experience. So this is one of the things I like to think about when you're talking about local issues. If you can find an individual, so that could be a local dad, or it could be someone who manages a local community group, if you can get them to tell their story and you can put them front and centre, that is usually the most powerful thing. And especially on Facebook, that type of video content is the content that people engage with and the content that people want to share with their networks. Now, I'm sure some of you will probably have some technical questions about video, how you can get started, the tools that you can use, the limitations, and how you can do some of this stuff in your mobile. So if you've got any of those questions, again, just ping them into the chat box or the questions box, and we'll pick some of those up at the end and we'll have a bit of a discussion about that. Okay, so this is a really important stat to get your head around. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. So more people make searches on YouTube every day than they do on Bing. Now, the other benefit of search-focused content through videos is the fact that YouTube is owned by Google. So if you make a general Google search, so if I search for Montrose Playhouse project and you as a councillor have created a video to talk about why you're backing the Montrose Playhouse project and you had put that video up on YouTube, probably that video will be one of the top results on Google for the Montrose Playhouse project, because video content has a really high priority in Google's algorithm. So what you think about when you're creating video content is it basically will fall into one of two camps. Either that really rich human storytelling content, so Leslie's story, which we just spoke about, or it will be search-focused content. And again, just thinking about the beauty of that is when local people are searching for, let's say there's going to be a new Tesco built, and you as a council have opposed that, and you've created a video outlining why you think it's a bad idea, maybe it's been built on a green space, for example, or it's going to have an impact, a negative impact on local businesses, and you create a video with that, and you tag that correctly, and you give it a correct description and title, when someone searches for that local issue online, that video is probably going to be one of the first things that they find. So again, just thinking about how does video content help you get in front of those local audiences really, really quickly. Okay. Facebook Live. It'd be really interesting to hear if any of the attendees have used Facebook Live at all. I think the potential for Facebook Live for elected members is massive. Now, two reasons within that. First of all, using Facebook Live is very simple. So it's the live streaming tool that is built into Facebook. Facebook has invested tens of millions of dollars to make it as simple as possible to use. So Facebook has invested tens of millions of dollars to make it as simple as possible to use. It is literally a red button on your phone. If you can press a red button on your phone, you can broadcast live video. Very, very simple. Now, the other benefit of Facebook Live is at the moment, live content, so live stream video content, has the highest priority in Facebook's algorithm. So when you go live and you have 250 likes on your council Facebook page, 250 people will get an instant notification to say that you've gone live, and it will hit the top of their timelines. It's a really powerful way of grabbing people's attention. The other benefit of that is that live content goes into an archived video, and Facebook's algorithm will throw that back into people's timelines. So if you were doing a live event from, say, a family fun day that you'd backed as a councillor, or maybe you were opening as a councillor, and you're live streaming that content, that will get in front of people's timelines incredibly quickly. Now, there's a couple of good guides in the slides that talk about how you can use Facebook Live, so you're going to explore that in your own time. I'm going to look through some examples from the charity sector of how live content is being used really well, and just getting you out with your comfort zone of where this might fit in. So the first one is from the Blue Cross, to an animal charity. So they use live content in their Southampton rehoming centre. So when a new animal comes into the rehoming centre and they want to talk about this three-legged kitten that's come in that has one eye, they will get the animal settled, they'll give it some food, and a member of staff will play it, and they'll turn Facebook Live on, and lots of people, they will get literally thousands of comments underneath that live stream broadcast about that cat. And actually what will happen is they will rehome animals within minutes using Facebook Live. So really powerful tool, but a tool to help them get their job done, nothing more, nothing less. Sue Ryder used Facebook Live to engage people in fundraising events. So in the run up to the London Marathon, this guy on the right hand side that you can see in that screenshot is a running expert. Anyone could ask him a question about running. So we saw hundreds of comments coming underneath this thread about buying your first pair of running trainers, about changing your diet in the run up to the London Marathon. Sue Ryder were using this as an opportunity to then follow up with those people. So when someone was asking a question about the running style and how they might change that because they're getting uncomfortable knees when they run, and they can see that person lives in Glasgow, and Sue Ryder has a 10k fun run that's happening in 2 months' time in Glasgow, they can follow up with that person. They can ask them, have you ever thought about doing a 10k for Sue Ryder? This is one of my favourite ones. This is from the RNLI. They had a telly programme recently called Saving Lives at Sea. You could, every time that programme finished, I think it was on BBC Two, you could jump on a Facebook Live and you could ask the people that you'd just seen that telly programme any question you'd like. So these three guys that you can see in that screenshot are from the Thames Lifeboat Service. Now, the amazing thing that happened during this Facebook Live broadcast was the alarm bells went off in the lifeboat station, and then suddenly these three guys got called out to rescue, and they came back a few hours later and then updated people on that rescue that they'd just been on and people could ask them questions. So that worked because it was a live piece of content. That would not have worked as a pre-planned piece of video. This is my final one. This is probably my favourite of all time. So this is from the Humane Society of the United States. There was loads of floods in America last year. Every time the Humane Society sent a boat out to rescue animals in towns up and down the country, they were putting a live stream camera on those boats. So this one live stream event on a town called Beaumont in Texas raised the Humane Society nearly $8,000. So using that donate button that's built into Facebook, they were using this as a way of getting people engaged in the day-to-day work that the charity does, but also using it as a way to drive donations. So again, you could do a surgery session using Facebook Live, so have a live Q&A. You could profile a campaign that you're backing and get the person from the community group who's championing that campaign to come on Facebook Live and talk about it. If there's a big event happening, why not live stream that event as it's happening in your local community and build up that local interest in it? So again, just thinking about where live content is going to fit within your Facebook presence. Okay, recommendations. There's some really nice examples of councillors who are using the recommendations tool, particularly Facebook recommendations. So if someone's come into one of your surgeries and you've helped them with an issue, and they get back to you with really positive feedback, either in person or on the phone or on email, what you want to be doing is saying to those people, that's great, but so that I can help more local people, it'd be amazing if you could leave that review on my Facebook page. If you're looking for an organisation that does this stuff really well, my favourite one is Peak, who are a youth work organisation based in the East End of Glasgow. And any time a parent gives them positive feedback, they say, that's great, we're really glad to hear that. Actually, so that more parents know we exist and know where to come for help, it'd be good if you could leave that review on our Facebook page so that people can visually see this stuff. And again, you can see that screenshot there of a woman called Stephanie leaving a really positive review about the fact that her son was deaf and the really positive support that Peak gave to her and her family. And again, also just remember, when people search for content around local issues and they find these types of reviews, this will help them think about where they come for support. Okay, next one, go to where your audiences are. So this is a really simple thing that you can do as counsellors, but the reality is not a lot of counsellors are doing this stuff. So in your local community, there will be numerous closed Facebook groups where local people go every single day to share local events, talk about local news, talk about local gossip. Rather than you trying to get all those local people to come and like your counsellor's Facebook page and then broadcast information at them through that page, it'd be much more powerful if you got involved in those local groups. So if you know there's a local group and there's 8,000 people in your community in it, rather than you waiting 5 years down the line to where they get a tiny fraction of that audience, is how do you go to where that audience is already? So these are two examples of that at play. So the one on the left-hand side that you can see, Leslie at Yarlton. So Leslie is a housing officer with Yarlton Housing Association. They spend much more of their time allowing their staff to go into closed local community groups than they do putting content on the official Housing Association's Facebook page. So this one that you can see, the screenshot I've taken, is from a group called Yarlington Chat, which is a local community group in Yarlington, which has about 9,000 of their tenants in it. So when Leslie wants to put a post up about electricity smart monitors that are going to be installed in people's homes, like you can see there, she will do that in that group because that's where her tenants go for local information. That post she put up had 198 comments back, so 198 of her tenants engaged with her and gave her those thoughts on electricity smart monitors. The one on the right-hand side is from Membership Council. So this is a Facebook Live event, so a live Q&A with the Leader of the Council, Mark McMillan. Now, they did not do that on the official Council Facebook page, they did it on the Paisley page, which is run by the guy that you can see on the left-hand side there. So they went to where their audience is. So again, just think about what that might look like in terms of your own communities. Okay, WhatsApp. So here's a statistic you all need to get your head around. WhatsApp is now the most used app in the UK. It's overtaken Facebook. What I want you to think about is if we know that WhatsApp is the most used app in the UK, but you're not using it as a tool to get your job done, you're still trying to do it all through Facebook or through Twitter, it's maybe time to reassess those channels and think about where WhatsApp might fit in. Now, in really simple terms, you could use WhatsApp to run a surgery. You could have a closed group of your supporters on WhatsApp. You could use it as a customer service tool where people can ask you really quick questions as a counsellor rather than having to pop into your office or pick up the phone or to email you. Two examples I've got up here, really quick ones I'll talk through, of where people are kind of pushing the boundaries of how WhatsApp can be used. So PETA have a group for people who are thinking about becoming vegans. Every single day in that group they'll put up new vegan recipes, so people are getting really positive information via that group. The one down the bottom, which you can see, is a fuel poverty team down in England for one of the housing associations are using WhatsApp, where people in their homes can take a quick photograph of their electricity bill or gas bill, ping it into the fuel poverty team. They will look at. Yeah.
Sorry, you seem to be breaking up a little bit. Did something change?
All right. Okay. Nothing's changed at my end. No, nothing's changed here.
Okay, must be.
Can you hear me now? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the fuel poverty team will get the screenshot of the photograph of the electricity bill or the gas bill, Look at the time if the person's on, ask that question, that person a few questions about things like, do you have double glazing at home, and what's your insulation look like? They're providing one-to-one fuel poverty advice through WhatsApp. So again, just thinking about how could this transform the way that you work. Okay, my final piece of content, and then we're going to look at a few tools, and then we'll have time for questions, is basically don't be like Bob. So this is a tweet from the official NHS Twitter account. They have a thing that they do every once in a while where they have a takeover where a member of staff from the NHS is given access to the official NHS Twitter account and can use it as a tool to talk about their job within the NHS and some stuff about their personal life that they're doing. Now, Bob is a consultant in a hospital. He is not a stupid person, but Bob has clearly not been trained that well in terms of how he's using Twitter and not sense checked what that type of content should look like. Now, I will let you read that in your own time. I'll not talk about that too much, but again, you can think about, before you jump into this stuff, is trying to find a role model. Is there another counsellor like you? How are they using Twitter to get the job done? How are they using Facebook to get the job done? How are they using good video content? So there are plenty of counsellors out there doing this stuff. And again, this is where Twitter really comes into its own, is that ability to connect with other people, not just in your party, but to figure out how they're using social media and thinking about how you can emulate some of that stuff in your local community. So find yourself a positive role model for those channels that you're going to be using. Okay, so when the slide link, when you click on that slide link and you come up on this slide, all of those underlined bits of text you can click through and explore these tools I've listed up there. I'm going to very quickly fire through these and then we'll have time for a few questions. So Canva. Canva is that online graphic design tool which I mentioned previously. It is free to use. It is a graphic design tool for people who know nothing about graphic design. There's thousands of templates built into it. So if you want to create more visual content, where we talk about a drop-in session, to talk about a community event, and to talk about how people can get in touch with you, you can use Canva to create that simple stuff on the fly really quickly. WeVideo is a video editor tool. Again, there's a free version and a really low-cost paid version. So if you want to film video content, or you're maybe doing something, like there's a new community garden opening and you want to film that, and you want to give it some really simple, quick edits, you can use the WeVideo app on your Android or Apple device. You can also use it on a laptop. It works seamlessly across a range of devices. Google AdWords. So where you are maybe running a campaign when the elections are coming up, or you want people to understand a local issue, you want to back a campaign, sometimes you might want to pay to get that information in front of people really, really quickly. And Google AdWords is a really powerful way of doing that. And also start to think about where Facebook ads might work, where you can target people really quickly. So if I wanted to target women aged 20 to 45 who live in Shettleston, because I wanted to talk about an issue that's going to affect them, I can use Facebook ads to get in front of them really quickly. So again, just thinking about if you're paying money to create print-based content, so if you're printing leaflets or flyers, any of that kind of stuff, could you take, say, 25% of that budget, chop it away, and start to experiment with social ads? Anchor. So Anchor is a really simple audio tool. So if you want to create really quick audio pieces of content, so if you want to get feedback from a local person on a local issue that you're working on, and rather than typing that stuff up and going through the efforts of creating a video, you can create audio-based content from your phone using Anchor. Legend is a really nice tool to create text-based GIFs. You've probably seen this before, these animated, really nice kind of text-based pieces of content, which you've probably seen in your timelines. You can do that stuff with no technical experience using Legend. Hootsuite is a tool which allows you to manage multiple platforms from a single account. So if at the moment, say you're managing a blog and maybe a MailChimp newsletter and a Facebook page and a Twitter account, rather than you have to log into all those spaces, you can manage that all from Hootsuite. You can do other stuff that you can schedule posts about in advance. So if you're going to be on holiday for 2 weeks, but you still want people to know about some of the work that you're doing, you can schedule that stuff to go in advance. Hotjar is a really simple tool for those of you who have got a website as a counsellor. So if you have a website and you want to know how are people using that site, if they are not getting in touch with you via the contact form on your site, Hotjar will allow you to look at how are people using that contact form. Did they fill out 3/4 of the form, but then they don't fill out the rest? Is it a question that you've made mandatory in that form that you would need to review and remove from that form? So Hotjar is a really simple tool for doing that. MailChimp, if you want to become GDPR compliant and you want to send email information to people or email newsletters to people, or you maybe want to save some money on that printed newsletter that you're creating at the moment, MailChimp is the tool that I'd recommend. It's free for up to 2,000 subscribers, so for lots of you, that'll be more than enough. It's very simple to use. Biteable. Biteable is a really simple tool that allows you to create very quick video content without filming anything. So it has built-in animation styles, it has built-in stock video, literally tens of thousands of stock video, and all you're literally doing is typing text over the front of it. So I've seen quite a few people like MSPs and MPs using this tool to talk about specific local issues, and you can literally create a 1-minute video in about 15 minutes. Really, really simple to use. And again, it's a free version, a very low-cost paid version. Typeform. If you run community consultations and you're already doing that through surgeries or focus groups, or you're maybe using SurveyMonkey, Typeform is my recommended alternative to SurveyMonkey. One of the big benefits of it is that you can create visual feedback, but also that it works really nicely on a mobile device. Most of the people engaging with you will be using a mobile device or a desktop-based device, so just keeping that stuff in mind. Okay, right, we have about 5 minutes, so it's 5 to 11 just now, and we have time for any questions at all. So if there's anything you want to ask, then ping it in the chat box or the questions box, and we can address those just now.
So, Ross, what's your recommended tool for elected members to use as an engagement tool? If they are just to use one, where should they start?
Where should they start? Yeah, it's a really difficult one. So, I mean, the reality is, in terms of your constituents, in terms of the kind of citizens living in your local community, the place they will still be using first and foremost will be Facebook. So it's a place where people will talk about local gossip. It will be the place that most of your people will have an account. So in terms of that engagement with local citizens, Facebook is the place that I'd recommend. Now, if you're maybe not comfortable with the dynamics of Facebook, and actually a lot of your work is connecting with groups and professionals and key influencers in your community, so maybe connecting with MSPs and MPs, local journalists, or local community groups, local charities, or local businesses, then Twitter would be the place that I would recommend. So what I would say is, for those of you who don't have any social media presence, is pick one of those two tools as your starting point, and then think about how you can grow from there. And so do not get overwhelmed by this stuff. I've also talked about a lot of ideas, a lot of tools, a lot of channels today. That doesn't mean that you go away and immediately open an Instagram account, a Twitter account, a Facebook account. Is actually focus on that one where you know your audience is, that you're comfortable with, and then you can start to grow in confidence from there. And what I would say though is, given the amount of people that use Instagram in local areas and who connect with other local people, and it's very easy to find local content through the way that you can tag stuff on Instagram, I have not seen very many councillors using Instagram, and I think there's a big opportunity there through visual content to celebrate the good work that you're doing, but also to celebrate your local communities in a very simple visual way. So I think Instagram's been underused and it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, you also mentioned in the beginning that the Improvement Service has worked together with the National Communications Group in Scotland to create guidance, and I've been involved with that, and I know there's lots of advice similar to what you've been giving today about how to get started. Actually, it's not an in-depth on how to use each tool, but it gives an introduction to why is it good to use social media to engage. Why does it make a difference from sitting in a surgery, maybe in a school hall or church hall somewhere, and how do you reach other groups that you might reach in those places? So about social media being a tool that reaches a different audience, or a larger audience possibly, than you can reach in person, and probably more cheaper in many ways than both time-wise and financially. So.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I would challenge everyone who's an attendee here just now is to go back to your office and to look at how much did you spend on print in the last year, and to think about, could I take some of that budget and start to spend it more effectively online. In particular, Facebook ads is actually, you can play about with them for as little as £5, but if you want to get a local issue in front of the right local audience very quickly, that's actually the quickest way that you're going to do it. And it also means that you're not having to create content around that local issue in a 2-week campaign where you're going to be creating content every single day, because you could spend a very small amount of money on Facebook ad or bespoke post on Facebook and target those people really quickly. For those of you who've never used Facebook ads, that link I gave at the start to the Pinboard account, which has all the resources in it, if you type in advertising in the search box, there's some really good guides on getting started with Facebook advertising. But again, just thinking about your printed stuff has a big environmental footprint. There's no way of measuring the impact. There's no way of measuring actually how many people even saw it or put it in the bin. Is sense checking, could you be spending some of that money a bit more cleverly?
Yeah. Yeah, I also want to maybe add that all the major platforms like Facebook, Twitter, or WhatsApp, or Instagram, or whatever tool you want to use, YouTube for that matter, they all have really good guidance on how to get started. So
Absolutely.
you can use that, and also I recommend, as Ross mentioned earlier, to find a role model and maybe find somebody you trust to sense check everything you send out. So make sure that in the beginning that you get an understanding for what's the style you want to use on this type of social media that you're using, and find somebody with a bit of experience to guide you in the right direction for the first period.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, if you know someone like Councillor Miles, if you think actually I really like the stuff that he's doing at a local level to talk about things, so simple stuff like the road closures post that I put up, but you're unsure about elements of it, there's nothing better than picking up the phone or emailing him or sending him a message on Facebook to say, I really like that post, did anything go wrong with it, and what are the lessons learned? So you can start to unpick how people are using these channels. You don't need to kind of fumble through and make all these mistakes because someone else has made these mistakes for you. How do you learn from them? Yeah.
If there are no questions coming through, this is probably the last chance to type in the questions. We're coming up just on the hour now. So, Ross, do you have any final words? And we'll give a last chance to ask a question before I round up here.
No, I mean, I think the main bit of advice is keep it simple, focus on that one channel, get confident, good with that, and then you can grow from there. But the big thing to focus on is what's important to local people right now. Focus on that first and foremost. So the party stuff, there will always be a place for that, but that should be at the fringes of what your content looks like and how you're approaching these channels. Always thinking about what is important to local people, what are they talking about, what are they concerned about, and how do you get involved in those conversations in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and it's very much about social media being a conversation. So it's a two-way street. You can actually talk to people, and people can tell you their opinions and talk back to you, even though you might experience some people being maybe aggressive or angry. Just it's probably important to realize that they need to talk to you much in the same way that you can get an angry email. You take the parts of it where they have something real to say to you and address that and make it a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, I would echo that.
We don't seem to have any questions coming through, so I'm going to round this up. Thank you very much, Ross.
Thank you.
Am I right to say that people can contact you if they have any questions in relation to just this, what you've been going through here?
Yeah, absolutely. So all my contact details in the first and last slide. So whatever method of communication is most comfortable for you, whether it's Twitter or email, or you can use the mobile phone, or you can use WhatsApp for that same number, then just ping the question. Happy to answer anything. That's absolutely fine.
And if you have any other questions, we're happy to help at the Improvement Service as well. You probably have been invited by David Barr from the Improvement Service Member Services. Sadly, he couldn't be here today. He was called away for other work, so I've been filling in for him. I'm a Media Communications Officer here at the Improvement Service and have been helping with developing the social media guidance for elected members. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I will end the webinar for all, and I hope you have a nice weekend. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ross.
Great. Thanks, everyone.